this thing on? My voice okay? Okay, like John said, my name is Ryan. I'm an artist and I live in Toronto, Canada. My current work examines contemporary cities and makes connections between our shared aesthetic experience and the idea that we're becoming progressively more disconnected from ourselves, each other, and the places that we inhabit. The work is a way to test and understand these relationships and boundaries. If our built environment, the stuff that we surround ourselves with, is a reflection of our values as a culture, can we conclude that this same environment, created both individually and as a society, influences the way we experience and feel about the world? And furthermore, with the rise of globalization, does this happen on a larger scale? Do the ways that other cultures choose to live or are forced to live reflect and influence us? My background is primarily in furniture design, woodworking, art, and skateboarding. What I like most about design, like architecture, is that it produces objects and images that we interact with on a daily basis. We actually get to touch this stuff. We open drawers, we pick up a glass, we sit on a bench, and in turn, the aesthetics of these objects evolve to reflect this interaction. In relation to cities, some of my first experiences when I was really looking and paying attention were because I was imagining new uses for how architecture is used in relation to the possibilities for skateboarding. And it wasn't, sorry. When skateboarding, you actually get to try ideas out right on the spot. And in turn, you get to interact with a whole host of people who are also engaged in the process of experiencing and understanding the city. In 2007, I moved to Buffalo, New York from Toronto, Canada, at a time when local government had announced a plan to demolish 5,000 abandoned residential homes over a 5-year period with little to no plan for renewal. The mayor called this his 5 and 5 plan. To put it mildly, I was shocked. How was it that an American city located an hour and a half away from Canada's largest city was experiencing such a crisis? What would the city look like with 5,000 more vacant lots? What does this say about the values of the culture, and what effect would it have on the people who continue to live in that culture? In 2010, the City of Toronto began preparations to host 20 of the world's most influential leaders at a G20 summit. Approximately $1 billion was spent on security and overall preparation. This was 10 times the amount that was reportedly spent organizing a similar event in Pittsburgh a few years earlier. A major element of the Toronto summit was a 10-foot-high security fence that surrounded a portion of the downtown core, including the area where the summit was to be held. I was working in the area at the time, and it was fascinating to witness this structure being built and the impact it was having on the neighborhood. There was even a checkpoint set up to accommodate people who lived in a condo that was located inside the fence perimeter. Was this really happening in Toronto? The weekend of the summit was for many a disastrous moment in the city's history. It reinforced the confusing and disenfranchised nature of our current global socioeconomic situation, and it also brought into question a level of personal freedom that many take for granted. The police even enforced a law restricting how close you could get to the fence, which after the fact ended up being made up. The law didn't exist. Later on that summer, I spent time in New York City, 9 years after 9/11, Philadelphia, 25 years after municipal police bombed an organization called MOVE's headquarters, Oklahoma City, 15 years after the Oklahoma City bombing, and New Orleans on the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, when it became painfully evident that flood walls designed to separate people from nature also served to divide race and class. I was interested in getting a better understanding of each place, and specifically how, if at all, these places presently remember the past while imagining the future. In the fall of that year, I moved to Berlin, Germany, to participate in a 3-month artist residency. One of the first things I did was to get a bike and explore. Early on, I came across a map a map of Berlin that highlighted where the Berlin Wall had stood and where it presently remains. I was 10 when the wall symbolically fell in 1989 and have no real memory of it being a significant event. But being there, where a specific period in Germany's history, one that many are ashamed of, is very much aesthetically, physically, and performatively a part of everyday life was a powerful experience. The fall of the Berlin Wall was an event that is widely regarded as the ultimate victory for democracy and free society. How is it then that we find so many new walls being built around the world, even in Toronto? Why is it that the same cultures that once celebrated now implement in their own countries that which they were adamantly against? This led me to consider the impact of fences, barriers, and separation walls in use around the world as universally defining the dominant ideologies which regulate our global culture. Here is a result of this work so far.
What's that? Why? Where are you going? What are you doing? Where? What do you got, man? Give me a
Separation Wall Global Park is a proposal for a public sculpture that will consist of recreated sections of contemporary separation walls and security fences from around the world. Included will be the Berlin Wall, the USA-Mexico border wall, the Israeli West Bank separation barrier, the peace line walls in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and the security fence during the G20 summit in Toronto. In all, 4 continents are represented. Each wall is a result of a unique context. They all share a similar purpose, and they are all connected. They serve the function of keeping people out while simultaneously keeping people in, and make it all but impossible for cultures to possibly resolve past conflicts. For those of us who do not live in the shadows of these structures, our experience of these places is solely through media outlets, which results in an incomplete and abstract understanding of their fundamental impact on the world. Would we support the use of such force in our own neighborhoods? Do we support their use in other parts of the world? Similar to the remains of the Berlin Wall, this grouping of recreated wall sections could be seen as a monument to a time when their current use has become history and they can be reinterpreted to serve a more positive function. Separation Wall Global Park could be a place to experience in our own backyard signs of oppression that exist in the world. It could play an important role in better understanding the attitudes that led to their creation on a global level and our relationship to them at a local scale. Is this a future for all cities? Do we need these structures to regulate how we interact with each other? To confront their physicality, especially in relation to the scale of local architecture, has the potential of being a sublime experience. In March 2012, a related work called States of Security, Security States will open at Eastern State Penitentiary Historical Site in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This work will consist of a full-scale cross-section of each wall painted with tar on transparent mesh. The mesh will be suspended off the existing prison wall and will juxtapose the image of each wall with the realness of the wall in Philadelphia. Eastern State was one of the first penitentiaries of its kind developed in the late 1800s and has subsequently influenced prison design all over the world. Like the Berlin Wall, this historical site is being maintained as a preserved ruin. It was abandoned for almost 20 years before a group decided it was worth saving and learning from. Many buildings of its kind get restored to what is known as a period of significance, a time that is symbolic to a building. In maintaining this site as a modern ruin, Eastern State has chosen their period of significance to be the present. Separation Wall Global Park uses this idea and, like the Berlin Wall, grounds the past in the present. Can we not learn to repeat the mistakes of the past and the tragedies born of fear, hatred, and rejection of others? My aim is to go beyond simply identifying or commenting on the ironic failures of our times, but to use the language of art as a means to critically engage ideas which shape our world. Can we reclaim ownership of our surroundings and refuse an environment that manifests intolerance and fear? My vision is one of freedom and unity, where public space encourages discussion and not division. Thank you.